What up, everyone? Welcome back to Knicks in 4, where we talk everything Knicks. I'm your host, Ayers. If you're new to the channel and you're enjoying what you're watching, please feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's get into it. So, how sweet it is, as the great Clyde Wall Frazier would say, the New York Knicks, after coming off a long extended break, are coming up a victory against the Denver Nuggets yesterday afternoon. And what an impressive game it was. And in fact, I believe it may be perhaps the best win of the season. So what we're going to do today, guys, is get into the details of what happened yesterday afternoon, how well we played, and talk about the return of Jalen Brunson and how impactful that was for us winning this game in the fashion that we did. Now, overall, I was very impressed from the jump from our team in this game. I mean, we came out in the first quarter like gangbusters. You know, everyone was clicking on all cylinders. And Jalen Brunson, after missing a few weeks, came back and played as if he never missed a beat. And this is what I want to spend most of the video talking about today, is basically how impactful Jalen Brunson is to this team. Now, I've been, talking about this in past videos about Jalen Brunson's impact overall and how he basically changed the entire look of this team overnight. But during this stretch of him missing games due to injury, we noticed very quickly how different this team looks when he's not on the court. Obviously, we had the situation with Julius Randle a couple of games ago, but Julius Randle seemed to put that away to bed, thankfully. And, it was quite a pleasure to see Jalen Brunson back with his teammates. First game back in the Garden, and as we can see, he accepted his Eastern Conference Player of the Month award, which was a good way to begin the game. And, man, what a beginning Jalen Brunson had. I mean, the guy just came out like he never missed a beat, scoring 16 first quarter points. I mean, he was electric out there, 6 for 8 from the field goal, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, all of this done in a matter of minutes. And I believe Jalen Brunson was talking to one of the commentators, one of the broadcasters, saying that if he didn't feel up to par, up to speed in the first couple of minutes, he used the first couple of minutes as a way to measure himself and to see if he can give it a go, or if maybe he needs to, take himself out of the game and whatnot. But, man, what an impressive beginning that Jalen Brunson had. He cooled off, towards the second, third quarter, but he managed to come back and add some crucial minutes and make some clutch buckets at the end of the game. But, man, what an impressive start for Jalen Brunson. Let's take a look at what Julius Randle said about Jalen Brunson's return ultimately and how it impacts the game.
Such a good record for us. There's so many things on the court. Scoops in the score and basketball, takes charges. Just does little things on the court that make us a better team. So, have JB back in the rotation definitely adds a lot to our team. And JB's a hooper.
Yeah, and as Julius said, what he does out there on the court, he completely changes the outlook of this entire team, Jalen Brunson being the floor general. And it seems, I made this comment before, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, Jalen Brunson arguably has some of the best footwork I've ever seen currently or in league history. I mean, the way the guy operates out there, mind you, he's not one of the biggest guys. He's quite on the short end, but the way he's able to manipulate the defense just off of footwork alone, and it's not even any fancy, dribble penetration moves like an AI or a Kyrie, but it's just, a mastery of fundamentals, the way he can move around. He knows how to pick apart the defense. He can see the weaknesses, and he can see opportunities anywhere on the court, whether that's penetrating or whether that's shooting, and we saw it all unfold in the first few minutes of the first quarter. And, if we're going to have any sort of success on playing well in the playoff season, is going to be up to Jalen Brunson. Now, one other big takeaway from this game that I have to give credit where credit is due, and that is to RJ Barrett. Now, RJ had a terrific game, if you ask me. When you're looking at the stats here, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, that's not anything too crazy, but it's the efficiency at which RJ played with. He was in the zone. He basically knew what exactly he wanted to do. He wasn't doubting himself as we normally see him typically do game in and game out. And he just seemed to have known exactly what type of game he wanted to have. And I believe he was something like 8 for 13 from the field, and he was very efficient. He just was in attack mode from the beginning of the game to the very end, not making any silly plays. There were some overall team mistakes here and there, but RJ was locked in completely. Let's take a look at what Tom Thibodeau has to say about RJ Barrett and noticing his impressive game today as well.
Attack the basket. Stop messing around. The more you attack the basket, the better it is. So if you're one-on-one, you got to name it to the basket, shoot. If you got 2 or 3 guys hanging on you, spread. Don't complicate the game. I thought he made good reads today, but I want him in an attack mode. There's simplicity in execution. Don't complicate this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Tibbs is absolutely right. Often more times than not, the problem that I notice with RJ is that he overthinks the game. And when he's in the flow of the offense, when he's just letting the game come to him and he's not so, hell bent on, am I going to make the right play? Am I going to turn the ball over? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? When he's just completely locked in and flowing naturally with how everything is going, according to how the game is flowing, RJ is quite sensational. And he was dictating what he wanted to do, utilizing his strength, finding the weak spots, penetrating at all times. He was a little off from the 3, but that's fine. As long as you're in attack mode, good things will happen, because even if you don't make the bucket, right, you're still, putting pressure on the defense. Maybe you're drawing a foul. Maybe you are on a give and go. Maybe you find an open teammate in the corner or whatever. So, overall, I loved RJ's game today. Now, if we can get more games like this from RJ, again, we're not asking RJ to average almost 30 points or, be one of those type of scorers. We just need RJ to play efficiently, to make smart decisions, and to understand what the game is dictating. Okay, if the game is dictating for me to penetrate and take advantage of the defense down low, then I'm going to do that. If the game is dictating me to be more of a facilitator, I'm going to do that as well. So overall, great game from RJ, and I'm very impressed with what I've been seeing from him as a result. Now, this wasn't just in RJ or Jalen Brunson collective effort. It was a team effort, and you had guys like Isaiah Hartenstein, Josh Hart. These guys are the cleanup guys, right? They do all the dirty work, getting rebounds. There was a few possessions with Josh Hart where, there was just like multiple offensive rebounds, giving us second chance opportunities. And I believe in that fourth quarter, Josh Hart played an integral part in us winning that game, because the game was back and forth. We came out in the first quarter like gangbusters again, shooting, clicking on all cylinders. Everyone, contributing to the scoreboard, I should say. But when it came time to the second quarter, the Denver Nuggets were slowly chipping away, and then eventually they took the lead, and they continued to stretch that lead in the third quarter. But we made a significant push towards the end of the third quarter, and that's when these guys like Josh Hart and Isaiah Hartenstein started to contribute. One other thing that I want to highlight is the fact that this Denver Nuggets team, right, is at this moment right now, they're the best team in the Western Conference. And, when I talked about earlier in the video, was this perhaps the best win of the season? Now, obviously, we had the impressive victory against the Boston Celtics. Without Jalen Brunson, obviously, that was the game that Emmanuel quickly scored like 38 points. And we had a few other impressive victories overall this season. But the reason why I single this game out is because if we have any chance of coming out of the East, then obviously we're going to be going against one of these top tier Western Conference teams. And what I've noticed lately is the fact that if you look down 1 through 8, right, there is not any really team that I'm terrified of, right? You have the Denver Nuggets at number 1. You got the Memphis Grizzlies at number 2. Obviously, we don't know what the situation with John Morant. He's expected to come back in a couple of games. But we played well with these teams all the time. And in fact, in terms of the season series, let's take a look one moment for the season series. We only played 2 games against Denver. We beat them in Denver. And, of course, yesterday afternoon, we beat them in the Garden. This is the best team in the Western Conference. And if this is what the West has to show us, I'm pretty confident of our chances of making some real noise if we so happen to make it out of the Eastern Conference. Now, going back to, shout out to Knicks Muse, going back to his post, nobody wants to see the Knicks right now. I'm not entirely too sure about that. The Eastern Conference, since last year has, overall been better than the Western Conference. And if the Knicks are going to come out of the Eastern Conference, obviously we're going to have to go through teams like Boston, Philly, and, of course, Milwaukee. Now, Boston, we play pretty well with. We are a matchup nightmare for the Boston Celtics, I believe. So I think we have a chance of taking the Celtics if we were to match up with them at some point in the playoffs. But we would have some real problems with the Philadelphia 76ers as well as the Milwaukee Bucks. But other than those two teams, yeah, you got the Phoenix Suns getting Kevin Durant possibly back at some point during the beginning of the playoffs. But outside of those 3 or 4 teams, there is no one in the entire NBA that I'm afraid of, right? We can play with anybody. So, let's see what happens. We have about 11 games left in the season. And, can we make it to 50 wins? I highly doubt that just because, we may decide to rest guys. I don't know if Tom Thibodeau, but knowing who Tom Thibodeau is, he may decide to go full throttle and just continue to play guys, no matter whether it's, other teams deciding to rest their star players. I would imagine Tom Thibodeau is still playing every single game 100%. But, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm projecting that we can make it somewhere to 48, 47 wins. We'll see if we can make it to 50 wins. I believe that will require us going something like 8 wins, 2 losses, which is totally possible. We do have a little bit of a tough stretch of games remaining on the schedule, but anything can happen, right? And this Knicks team, again, as I mentioned before in the past, they are turning it on at the right time and getting Jalen Brunson back in time. I believe his injury was maybe a blessing in disguise because, Jalen Brunson has been full throttle almost this entire season. And given the fact that he was injured for about 2 weeks, I believe, gave him enough time to get fully rested. And now he seems to be fully energized, gearing up for the final stretch of the regular season. But that's going to be all for the video, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if, in fact, you believe that this was the best victory of the season. Do you think that the Knicks have any chance of making it to the 50-win stat? Highly unlikely, but possible. Definitely possible. But that's going to be it in the video, guys. Catch you in the rebound. Peace.